Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to discuss the Nikon MC105 macro S-glass lens with VR. It's a long name, but let's get into it. So welcome back to the channel, guys. Like I said before, today we're going to be taking a closer look at the MC105 from Nikon. But before we get started, let's take a look at this bad boy. Let me at least show it to you. All right, guys, there it is. Look at that bad boy. It's gorgeous. It's a little bit bigger. It's one of the only lenses I have that has this little screen on it right here, which is, I think it was a novel attempt from Nikon. This right here does show you information like your aperture, when you're focusing, your distance to focus, and so on and so forth. You have your really nice big control ring here for your focus, and for a macro lens you need a nice big control ring for focus. You have, going around the lens here, you have your function button, which I use for focus lock, and then right here you have your switch for autofocus and manual focus, and your focus distance, which is very vital for a macro lens. Yep, that's it. I got it right. All right, so let's get into this lens now that I've showed you what it looks like. I'm not one of those YouTubers that's gonna take off the lens caps and do all that because I don't wanna get dust on my lens. Whenever they do that, I cringe. I'm like, why are you guys exposing the sensor to dust? Why are you exposing the glass to dust? I know you're doing it for the viewers, but at the end of the day, that puts more work on me to have to clean it, number one. Number two, once you clean it, I feel like it's never perfectly clean again, never clinically clean again, and I'm OCD. Let me get on with the video here. This lens was released in June of 2021 from Nikon, and you know, it promises exceptional image quality. It is an S lens after all. If you've watched my 24-120 or any of my lens reviews, S-glass quality lens. It's just some of the sharpest lenses that Nikon produces, minimizes chromatic aberrations, minimizes lens flaring. These are the professional line of lenses. Now I'm filming today with the 40mm Z Mount lens, which I reviewed already, and it's not an S-glass lens, but it does a very good job. So that just goes to say that Nikon lenses are some of the best lenses in the world, if you ask me, and that is the main reason I shoot Nikon. The bodies are great, don't get me wrong, they're ergonomic, they're great, but the lenses is where it's at. So first impressions of the MC105 when I got this, and I got this lens pretty much when it came out to shoot ring shots for weddings mainly, but my first impressions were quality, well-built, metal design, very good weather sealing, very good build quality, nice buttons, nice switches, very quiet meter. Let's see if I can do this for you guys. Pretty smooth, pretty quiet. You don't hear any nasty grinding or anything like that in this. It's a great lens. It's not my most used lens, don't get me wrong, but when you need to get that ring shot and you need that level of detail, or you want to do a flat lay, when you're doing a creative portrait shot, this is the lens that I turn to for creative portraits. And I'll show you some creative portraits along the way. So, you know, used with a Z6 II or Z7 II or Z8, this lens is not gonna feel heavy, it's not gonna feel bulky because of the ergonomic grips that you're gonna get. Now, if you put this lens on the ZF, just like the 24-120 that I reviewed prior, these lenses on the ZF just make the ZF very hard to hold. It's just not a robust enough camera with a big enough grip to be able to use it handheld. I say handheld all day long. That being said, I don't often use, especially this one. The 24-120 I do put on the ZF from time to time, but this macro lens usually stays on my Z6 II or my Z8, usually my Z8 now that I have it. So let's talk about image quality, because that's why you buy a lens, to be honest with you. The image quality on this lens is top notch, pretty much. Let's just start with that. It provides great magnification, great detail, and fantastic bokeh, even at f5, f6 when you're doing macro work, and when you're using it for portraits, wide open at f2.8, it is sharp across the entire image for the most part. So let's talk about the autofocus of the MC105. And this is probably the one place that I would give a ding on this lens. It can focus hunt a little bit. That is mainly though when you're using this lens for macro work. When you're using this lens for portraits, shooting on the full on your focus limiter right here, focus distance limiter, and you're using it at f2.8 even at wide open, it's very sharp, very fast, very silent, very quick to focus. When you're shooting macro work, however, even with the limiter turned on, I found that at times it hunted a little bit. Now this is handheld. It does have VR in it, and combined with the IBIS and the newer systems, you're not gonna really see a lot of motion blur, but because you're shaking a little bit when you're in macro work and you're focusing so close that those little shakes can cause it to have to refocus. Now, if you put this thing on a tripod, it'll lock on focus and it'll stay there, no problem. So I would advise using a tripod. However, when I'm doing ring shots at a wedding, I don't have time for that. I'm pulling the rings off them during the reception. I'm taking them out, I'm doing a quick photo, and I'm giving it back to them. That's usually what I'm doing. So I'm not really gonna put this thing on a tripod to do that. That's just me. I'm saying it does hunt a little bit when you do that, but I'm still able to get the shots, as you can see throughout the video. So as I mentioned, this thing does have VR, vibration reduction, and combined with the IBIS and the camera bodies like the ZF that I'm filming with, or the Z8, or even the Z6 II over there. You can't see them when I'm holding the lens up. This lens performs very well. You do not have any issues with blurry images due to shaky hands, especially at shutter speeds over 130, not a problem. Shutter speeds under that, you might start to see some issues hand holding because it is a longer focal length, but honestly, I can tell you I have never had any issues with blurry images due to shaky hands, period. And I am not the most stable of hands. I have never had any issues with this lens. So I'm not going into the science of it, but I'm telling you right now, this bad boy is great. So who is this lens for? Who's the 105? Who's the MC105 for? It's for pretty much everyone, if you ask me. But if you're into macro work, or you're into ring shots for weddings and you need a lens that's gonna provide sharp, detailed images for your ring shots at a wedding and fantastic, creative, unique portraits, this is the lens for you. If you're a portrait photographer and you want a longer focal length, maybe you're looking at the 85-1.8, well, look at this bad boy. At 2.8, at 105 millimeters, you're gonna get the creamiest of bokehs. You're not gonna have any issues with sharpness. Look at the images, look for yourself. And lastly, product photographers. If you're doing product photography and you wanna get that magnification that a macro brings, but the detail that a macro brings, look no further. This is the lens for you. This is your lens. So product, portrait, wedding, and macro. That's a pretty wide use for a lens. So it's not a lens you're gonna buy and never use. Now, I don't use it as often as the 50mm 1.8 or the 24-120 at a wedding per se. It might be used for maybe 10 shots, 20 shots that I process, but those are some of my favorite and best shots of the entire wedding. So might not be the most used, but it is some of the best images you'll get out of a lens at a wedding. I've never used it for product photography, so I can't speak much about that. And as far as my macro work with this, it's been mostly wedding ring shots, but I have no complaints, and it's a very good lens, and I'm glad that I got it. The only limitation that I've already mentioned on this lens, the only limitation I'll mention one more time, is it does hunt when you're trying to do macro, handheld macro work, which is probably ill-advised anyway. Put it on a tripod, you'll be fine. But I'm on the go, I'm shooting, and I only have time to get the shot and get the rings back and keep shooting the wedding. So for me, I do it handheld, I deal with the hunting, and I mean, we're talking like, it might take three attempts to get the shot instead of one. It's not the end of the world. So I'm just saying the only limitation that I've found, I wanna make sure if you buy this lens on my recommendation, you're like, why didn't you tell me about this? I'm telling you, it does hunt a little bit. Outside of that, I've had zero issues with this lens. It's one of my favorite lenses, and it produces some of my favorite portraits I've ever taken. All right, so to sum things up on the MC105 VRS, yada yada yada, longest damn name in Nikon's lineup, it delivers top quality sharpness, very quick focusing, very silent focusing, low chromatic abbreviations, low lens flare. It's great for portraits, it's great for macro work, it's great for product photography work. It's not too heavy. It's pretty easy to handhold with the Z8 and the Z6 II. They have the bigger, more robust grips. I wouldn't recommend this on a ZFC or a ZF for that matter, just because it would just get hard to hold after a while. Now, if you're on a tripod, doesn't matter. But this is a great lens. If you got any questions about it, drop it in the comments. Let me know what you think about this lens if you own it, and let's talk. All right, guys, that's it for this week. Until next time, peace. Pow. And hey, all right, let's get into it. Test 1, 2. Okay, it's working.